Hello, everyone. Welcome to Science Sci-Fi, connecting the public to science and technology through storytelling. My name is Honest Friedman. I'm a science fiction writer and an IT professional, but I also have a university degree in economics. Today, I'm going to wear the economics hat on my head. I don't know, maybe it's this one. Never mind. Today's topic is climate change. On one hand, we have the climate change denier who say that there is no such things. On the other, we have alarmists who try to scare us into panic. This month, scientists confirmed that July was the hottest month in recorded history. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres had responded to that. We'll discuss this in more in today's episode. Stay tuned. Should we panic now? Here is what the UN Secretary General said. The era of global warming has ended and the era of global boiling had arrived. That sounds pretty dramatic. Climate change is here. It is terrifying and it is just the beginning. It is still possible to limit global temperature rise to 1.5 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels and avoid the very worst of climate change. But only with dramatic, immediate climate action. Do we really have a reason to panic? This is what we are going to explore in this presentation. So, here is what we do know about climate change. First and foremost, climate change is real. The planet is warming up, and it's most likely, according to most scientists, caused by human activity, primarily by burning fossil fuel, which is coal, oil, natural gas, etc. This is what warming the planet. Also, we know it's not an immediate existential risk. It's not like in 1 year or 5 years, humanity is going to become extinct. It's going to cause catastrophe. It could cause raise sea level, food shortage. It could cause a lot of issues, but not existential risk. So we do have some time. We don't need to panic. We can take some time to think about it and find the best solution. Another things we know, abundance of cheap energy and cheap food is crucial for human prosperity. If we want to be prosper, we need cheap energy so we can fly, do stuff, build stuff, produce stuff. The Paris Accord 2030 that is designed to reduce carbon emission by 50% by the year 2030, things like net zero 2035 that a lot of countries are now trying to implement to reduce carbon emission to zero by the year 2035, degrowth, that they want to shrink the population, make everyone poorer, consume less energy, less products. Those will definitely harm human prosperity. And in some scenario, it may not work. It may work, but it also may not work. By far, the most effective way to stop climate change is innovation. First thing we're going to debate and talk about is about climate change itself. We know that body in space can lose heat in 3 ways. Let's say my head is very warm and I want to cool it. One thing is I can touch something else that is a lot colder, and I can transfer heat from my hand to the bottle. That's one way to lower temperature of something. Another thing is respiration. If we have liquid that evaporate, like if I have water in my body and it evaporates, it cools me down. And the third way is radiation. Hot body emit infrared, mostly infrared radiation. In space, the only way we can lose heat is by radiation, because we don't have liquid with we don't sweat in space, we don't lose water, we don't touch something else that we can exchange the heat with that something else. We are a planet floating in space, and the only thing we can do is radiate. Another thing we know that the warmer the planet is, it radiates more. So it gets into a balance. We get sun, the sun is radiating and hitting the earth is warming up, and warming more and more and more until it reaches a balance point that it's radiating enough energy to cool it as much as the radiation that it gets from the sun. Theoretically, if there was no atmosphere and no greenhouse gases, the temperature of Earth should have been something like 35 degrees Celsius lower than what it is now. But we have water and we have cloud and we have CO2 and other greenhouse gases, which is why the temperature is a bit higher. Now, what happens if we increase the amount of greenhouse gas? If we increase it, then the Earth will warm even further until it gets to a new balance where the radiation is equal to what it emits, and the planet will be warmed. So this is one reason why we don't want to increase climate, to increase the greenhouse gas that raise the temperature and raise the climate change. And we do know that when we take millions of tons of carbon that was buried in the ground for hundreds of millions of years since the Cambrian period, or maybe a little bit later, the Devonian period, and we take it and burn it and put that carbon back in the atmosphere, this will increase the CO2 level in the atmosphere. And because the CO2 level increase, that's a greenhouse gas, the temperature will go up. Assuming, of course, that the amount of radiation that coming from the sun is the same and all the other conditions are the same. So climate change and environmental degradation is a serious issue. It could cause extreme weather. It could cause sea level rise. Most of our infrastructure right now is cities that are next to the ocean. If sea level will go up by a few meters or a few feet, it could flood some area. It could cause more storm. It could cause... So we have to abandon the cities or build some kind of walls or stuff to keep the water out and pumps. So it's going to be very expensive. It's going to cause a lot of suffering, migration. It could cause forest fire, disruption to agriculture, ecosystems, deforestation, loss of biodiversity. Many, many bad stuff could happen from climate change if we raise significantly the amount of greenhouse gas in the atmosphere. Now, climate change also have some good impact. I want to mention it in this presentation. But in total, it has more negative impact than positive impact, based on what a scientist said and economist said. But let's review the positive aspect. If we have a very mild climate change or global warming, first of all, NASA is saying that the Earth is becoming greener. It could be seen from satellites. The reason for that is that part of photosynthesis is to use carbon dioxide from the atmosphere along with water and energy from the sun and turn it into sugar or food or whatever plants is growing. So the optimal level of CO2 is 1200 parts per million. If we remember, since before the industrial age, the level of CO2 in the atmosphere was 280 parts per million, and now since we dig and burn so many coal, it went to 420 parts per million. So it's a significant increase, but that's good for plants in general. And other things to take into account: more people statistically globally die from freezing, from cold, and not from heat. So if it's a little bit heater, more warmer, maybe fewer people will die from freeze, more will die from heat, but the total of number of people that die may actually be reduced if it's very, very mild. Another argument I heard is that if we raise the CO2 level and we have more greenhouse gases, the next ice age will be delayed or become more moderate. 100 years ago, about 500,000 people died every year from natural disaster related to climate. Today, the number of people who died from it is about 18,000. That's 97% reduction. How did we get to that? We got to that because people got out of poverty. if we are not in extreme poverty, even if the climate change or something happen, we can still survive. We can find, if we can go, if you move to disease, we can move to another place. Lots of things with it we can do. So, what are the economic impact of climate change according to scientists by the year 2100? That's 73 years in the future. What is the scope of the problem? UN IPCC, that's the committee of a large number of scientists, I think close to 2,000 scientists, they come together. They expect that the temperature, the Earth's average temperature, will go up by 1.5 degrees Celsius if we act now, like the UN Secretary General said. And if we don't do anything, it is expected to go up by something like 4 degrees. 4 degrees pretty severe. It means sea level is going to go up. Some cities are going to be partly flooded. We're going to have a very damaging impact it's going to be a catastrophe to the planet, but still, that's not an extinction. And this is something that we can survive. According to climate economists, now I'm not talking about climate scientists, but economists, moving to the economic sides, William Nordhaus, I hope I pronounce his name correctly. If we don't act to mitigate climate change, we just continue doing what we do now and even gradually increase the amount of fossil fuel that we use, like we are doing right now, but not try to mitigate it. The impact will feel as it impacts something like 44% less well off than we could be if there would be no climate change. So first of all, definitely the total net impact of climate change is negative. It's going to harm us. But for example, if the global GDP, we are becoming richer as time passes because of innovation. So as global GDP per capita is going up, it's expected to go up by 450%. If we don't do anything about climate, it will only go up by 434%. If we try to translate that to what economists are saying, basically it means since the damage is about 4%, if we can invest less than 4% of the global GDP in mitigating climate change, for example, let's say we invest 2% of the global GDP. Now this year I think it's getting close to $100 trillion. So 2% of that is $2 trillion. If we invest 2%, something like $2 trillion, and we can mitigate most of the change, then it is a good thing. It's something we should aspire, something we should do. But let's say we want to take $10 trillion, this is something that will cause more harm than the benefit the reduction and impact to climate change is going to cause. That means it's going to create more poverty, more people will die from housing or food shortage, or our standard of living will go down significantly, more than it could go down if we don't do anything about climate change. Paris, net zero 2035 and regrowth. Here are some of the problematic issues with what the UN and other organizations in some countries are proposing. So first of all, mathematically, if we degrowth, if we reduce the number of people, that should theoretically work, because if we have fewer people, we have less impact on the environment, we use less energy. So that could work. I'm not saying it's going to go not to work. I'm just saying that it's going to harm human prosperity, and it's going to cause a significant economic pain. First thing I'm going to talk about is closed system versus open system. If we take carbon that was not in the circle of life, it was not part of the ecosystem, it was a carbon that was buried for 400, 300 million years in the ground, and you put it out, add it to the system, this will definitely have a negative effect. But if the carbon is part of the circulation, for example, what Ireland did right now, that decided to kill 200,000 cows to reduce climate change, to meet the very aggressive climate goals in Ireland, or reduce agriculture supply, reduce fertilizer. This will means that we're going to have less food, and this is going to impact everyone, but primarily it's going to impact poor people who will have nothing to eat or a lot less to eat. It could also cause, if you would go too aggressively, it could cause loss of high-paying jobs. In order to get to net zero, you will have to force people not to fly or fly a lot less. So you need some kind of a very centralized, strong government that can impose these laws and these restrictions. So it's going to reduce the freedom of choice for people and for travelers and consumers. If you look at the graph here, you can see that the biggest rise right now, the West, the United States and Europe, they emit quite a lot of CO2, but the level is stabilizing and slowly going down. Most of the growth happens in Asia, in China and India. China right now, they know about climate change and they want to mitigate it, but it's more important for them to have cheap energy. So they do build a lot of solar panels and try to go to electric cars, but they're also building 250 coal power plant. And whenever prime minister or people in the Western try to talk to them, hey, don't build those power plants, they are not going to listen because they need the cheap energy. In order to enforce all this policy, you need a very, very strong centralized authority that force everyone to comply. Getting out of poverty is important, and if you enforce all these regulations, people will basically become poorer, and I'm not sure how it's going to work. Primarily, let's say if we punish ourselves here in the West, and we are going to reduce the standard of living by 10% and limit the amount that we can travel and fly or drive, or even make the food we consume a lot more expensive, it's going to harm us. But if China doesn't change, whatever harm we'll cause to ourselves will be pretty insignificant to climate change. So it's not that if, for example, we are in Canada, I'm in Canada, we're going to stop driving and stop flying and pay very expensive for food and live in very, very small apartments. It's not going to do a big impact on the climate if other countries will not join us. So we have to be smart about it. And another thing why this whole thing may fail is because people don't want to be poor and people don't want restriction. So some people are going to resist, they're going to oppose, and this may cause this whole initiative to fail. By far, the most effective way is innovation. A solar panel could be the solution. The amount of solar power that arrived to Earth is about 6,000 times more all the energy needs. So just if we can cover 0.1% of the surface of the Earth with solar panel, and we are able to store it and transfer it cheaply, then we solve all the energy need. We don't need anything more. But we also have wind and geothermal and hydropower. We have the cost of renewable energy is dropping. The cost of solar powering is dropping. It's becoming cheaper and cheaper. And we can invest in research and development to make even better solar panels. We also need storage facility because there is no, in the winter in the northern hemisphere, there's not a lot of sun. At night, there is not a lot of sun. If we build wind turbines, sometimes there is no wind. So we need a way to store the energy. We also want to combine it with nuclear energy if we can make it cheaper and safer. And I know right now there are some companies that are working on small modular reactors that could be cheaper. Fusion power may come along in a few years, perhaps in 5-6 years. Transportation right now, we are transitioning to electrical vehicle. This is going to happen in the next 10 or 20 years. Most of the vehicles are going to be based on electric. And if the electricity is coming from renewable or clean energy source, then we solve transportation, except for flying. Flying, we need other solution, maybe hydrogen, other innovation. You want to check at this point, I would recommend to check the Infinite Resource video that I did with Jeff Grammer. He has a very interesting idea about how to generate energy in the Arctic that maybe even 100 times more than the energy need of humanities, and use hydrogen and airship to transfer it all. You may want to the video. And another video I would recommend is about nuclear and energy, how we can make nuclear abundant and cheap, that can help mitigate climate change. So, example why innovation is important rather than enforcing reduction in lifestyle and increase poverty. If you tell people that they need to be poor and they can't travel, they cannot eat meat, some people will resist. They don't want that. But if you go to the same people and tell them, hey, look, if you buy this solar panel, you can save on your energy bill. You pay less for power. Then they say, yeah, that's a good idea. I'll put solar panel. So this is the way you want to approach, not by enforcement and regulation and reducing the quality of life, but by offering cheaper, better solutions that are environmentally friendly. If you do that, even China, why do they want to build coal power plants right now? Because they don't have enough power. They want more power, and coal is cheap. But if solar and renewable and nuclear will be 10 times cheaper, then it's a no-brainer. China will not build coal power, and you don't even need to convince them. They do it by themselves. So, innovation, what can we do? There is a direct correlation between the number of people and innovation. So first thing we need to worry about is not prevent a population collapse. We want to have more people. We need more infrastructure, build all the power line to be able to support transportation and being able to transfer electricity from places when you make it to places where it is consumed. And you'll be able to store it. And for that, we need many batteries. So we need a lot more copper, more lithium, and more cobalt, etc., etc., etc. Artificial intelligence can help us. Education can help us. Those can boost innovation significantly. One innovation example from the 1970s. In 1970, Los Angeles, California, suffered from smoke. They had a lot of smoke. So the solution was not to tell everyone from now on you can only drive by bicycle or walk. You're not allowed to drive. Instead, the innovation that, again, this is not related to climate change, it's related to smoke. The innovation was to invent the catalyst converter in 1978. It cost about $200, and that got rid of most of the pollution. And now Los Angeles has a lot less pollution. In conclusion, climate change is real. There is very little doubt there. I'm not arguing that it is not real. It is caused by humans, but don't panic. Don't fall to fear-mongering. Fear can cause panic, which will lead us to inefficient solution. And because they are inefficient and because they can cause resistance, they may not work. We need to work smart. We need to work efficiently and aim to spend something less than 2% of the GDP or 2% of the GDP in order to solve climate change. And to do that, we need to be smart about it. Do the most critical, the most important things, and do it in a way that people will want to do that because it will benefit them. So, thank you very much, and I hope you don't forget to click like and subscribe to the channels, and see you on the next video. Bye for now.